What's up, guys? Welcome back. This is a before and after of some of the analysis that I would have done in the Trading Nut YouTube channel live stream that I did a few hours ago. The after comes from what would have happened, and I'm going to break that down for you very quickly. I hope you enjoy. This NZD card looks good for setup. Let's see. So that's Diego, NZD card. All right. Okay, good. So NZD card is bearish currently, right? So this is 50-minute time frame. It's currently bearish. Let's see overall. NZD card is bearish. Yeah. Right. So this actually looks kind of good. I agree. Why do I think so? Because remember we said that if it is overall and currently bearish, that's a good sign. You'll never make more money than when the market is already doing what you wanted it to do. So this here could be an impulse move. What do I mean by impulse move? What my thinking of an impulse move is, this is to gather the liquidity. Remember we said that before the market actually goes in the direction that it wants to go, it should go in the opposite direction to grab that liquidity and then go. So if this is a bear market, before it actually sells really aggressive, it should buy, because obviously the sellers have to sell to somebody, right? So it should buy. They have to go grab the liquidity of the buyers, right? And then drop. So overall, NZD card is bearish, right? It has gone for some liquidity and is now going back bearish again. So if we come down to the 50-minute time frame now, this is actually a good sign. It is bearish currently. So you could begin to try to prioritize looking for an opportunity to enter. Now, here's the little trick with this, right? This here obviously is Asian session, but we're in Asia now. What I want is I want to see that grab of liquidity even in the Asian session. So what I would like to see is something maybe that looks like this and then that. And why right here? Why am I drawing it like this? Because this is the last area I know liquidity to be. Maybe something like this. That is the last area I know liquidity to be. This area. If I see something like that, I would probably try to sell NZD card. So that's what I think on NZD card, right? So that is that.
Day 2.
All right, so here we have NZD card after the fact. So what I would have told you guys in the live stream is NZD card overall, as you can see, is bearish at this point. You have a beautiful, nice drop. You have a nice impulse move on NZD card, just reiterating the point. And you can see that NZD card has gone back into bearish momentum. I think I even said, right, that I think on the 4-hour time frame, you have this nice big bear momentum coming in here. And I know I highlighted this area on the 50-minute time frame. Now, I didn't get it exactly right in terms of how far the manipulation would go in terms of the liquidity grab. It doesn't look very healthy on the 15-minute, but on the 30-minute, that looks really good. Now, I did say that obviously you would wait until it goes back into momentum to get the entry. Unfortunately, I didn't get to take anything because I woke up late. But the analysis was spot on in terms of what I would have thought it would have done. And you can see that beautifully done here, right? Where it would go up into this area, grab some of the liquidity of the buy side, and then drop all of the way. This drop is well over 60 pips of drop, right? So that's that. So GJ, all right, we have a nice one on GJ. Good. So GJ currently is bullish. Let's see what it does overall. It's also bullish overall. That's clear. Anybody disagrees that GJ is bullish? Good. No. So it's bullish overall. And you're seeing some nice rejection, some nice spikes to the low, and then it pushes up immediately after the fact. For our time frame, also nice and bullish. You even have a nice bullish engulfing candle coming in here on the 4-hour. So if it closes like that in an hour and 25 minutes, that's a good sign. That means that there is possible move to the upside, which is good, right? 15-minute time frame, that's also very strong. What I would like to see, even though you're seeing some rejections to the downside, what I would like to see, go for some liquidity and then up. Why here? Maybe not like that. Let me draw that again. Let me do it a little better for you. So what I would look to the left, right? And you're not looking to the left for any support or anything like that, you know. You're just looking at an area where you know that there will be a massive amount of traders. I would like to see grab some liquidity and then go. That's what I would like.
Day 2.
All right, so now we have GG. So I would have said as well on GG is overall bullish, as you can clearly see here. The law is very simple, and this is what works for me. Once the market is in a specific directional bias by virtue of the momentum is one direction, it's unidirectional, meaning it's only going one way, I'm going to follow that momentum, not the trend, the momentum. The momentum in this case is bullish overall. And then I even highlighted on the 50-minute time frame, you saw that it was bullish here as well. I did say that I would like to see a spike down into the area and then a nice push, maybe a push up into this area, right? Because this is the last area we know liquidity to be. It looks as though was present. It looks like it's trying to get there. It didn't quite get to the area that I wanted, never triggering my alert here. I wanted it to get to this area, see how it reacted, and then obviously push off. It never did that, but it is what it is. Sometimes that just happens and you just have to leave it alone, right? But this is a beautiful analysis in terms of it did kind of do what I wanted it to do by virtue of grab some liquidity and then go. Always remember that a market, if it is going to make a move, it has to go for liquidity in the opposing direction first. I want to take a look at gold. I did this in my analysis yesterday morning, I think. Yeah, yesterday morning. So this is just ignore how messy it is. I'm not deleting these. I usually tend to clean up my charts, but I'm leaving them on specifically for this lesson, right? So this is what I had last week, and it more or less did what I wanted it to do, right? In terms of accumulate, spike up, drop back down, look the same thing here again, create the M, trend line, everything. More or less what I wanted to see is what would have happened, right? I am waiting. I waited to see if it could spike up into this area, right? Break this trend, spike up into this area, capture some of this liquidity from this area, this big general area right here, spike up, grab that liquidity, and then drop. What I told listeners who were listening to my class yesterday morning is I am looking for sells on gold, right? Why? Listen to me. Daily time frame. What is gold? From since this area, which is March this year, gold has been a bear market. This, excuse me, this here is an impulse move, meaning this buy is a buy to capture liquidity. Why do I think so? Because it bought right into the area where majority of the traders would have been trading. That is where the liquidity is. If it has to sell, it has to go for the buy liquidity first. It also would have broken out of this little micro trend here, broken out and starting to drop. You have a bearish engulfing on the daily time frame. Everything more or less aligns, right? What I would do, I'm not in sales yet, but what I would do is when it spikes again, I would have tried this, but when it spikes again, right? And I would probably look for a spike maybe in this region here. When it spikes again, maybe something like this and then this. In this area here is where I would be prioritizing looking for that sell on gold, because I know at this point, let me just, I know I always get tied up with saying I know. I believe at this point in time, if it goes up for the liquidity and then drops really aggressive, if I can get an entry in here when the momentum aligns with the bigger picture, which is overall bearish, it's a lot easier, or I should say simpler, for me to get a zero drawdown entry or a lesser drawdown entry. You all have to remember I use extremely tight stops. So I can't get away with just entering any and everywhere and hoping for the best. You have to be precise. But where does that precision come from? You have to think about what is the logic behind the market. If there are sellers playing in the market, obviously we know that they have to grab some of the liquidity from the buy side in order to continue selling. That's basic common sense. Right? So that's what I'm thinking. Right? 1760. Yeah, I think so. I think 1760, I agree. Right? Somewhere below this area, because we know that there's liquidity here. So I definitely agree. What I would not do is just randomly sell it, because you don't do it's not an analysis. So this is what I'm looking to see. Where I see it spike up, whether it be in Asian or New York or whatever. I would prefer it to be in Asian so I could get in and go and sleep, but it is what it is, right? But I would like to see it grab some liquidity and then drop.
Day 2.
All right, so now we have gold. We starved the show essentially, and this would have, listen, I'm proud of this one, because there's no way that I could have known exactly what gold would do. There's no way that anybody could do that, right? But I'm proud of this, and the reason that gold is a very hard asset to predict, right? And I said that, well, based on so far, I've actually been pretty spot on gold. But I said that based on what I'm seeing here, is I would like to see this trend broken. I would like to see it accumulate a little bit. We have that little drawing here and then a drop. It didn't do it in the duration that I would like to do it in terms of just a little accumulation and a drop. It actually did an accumulation for the entire day yesterday, right? Which will be this here, where it accumulated from here all the way to here, right? Even going a little into Asian. It would have then gone up, which is what I said it would, theoretically do. And why is it going up? The reason why is actually very simple. It wants to grab some of the liquidity of this area here, right? So it grabs the liquidity and then it drops. And only when it drops is when you look for your entry. Again, unfortunately I missed it, but the analysis was spot on in terms of, understanding what gold would do. I say this all the time, that market structure is a combination of elements coming together to create the structure. It's not drawing trend lines and supply and demand. It is trying to make sure that you understand all of the different elements of structure. What are some of the elements that we have on the chart? We have trend lines, yes. We have some supply, some demand, some support, some resistance, some traps. What are the traps? Traps are anywhere there's a lot of liquidity. Liquidity is also an element. Why? That's why price would go for liquidity, and that's why I have this area highlighted, because what I want to see is in this drop after it grabs the liquidity, which is somewhere theoretically here, I would have tried to enter, right? That's the best place to enter, because if gold is bearish overall, as you can see here on the daily time frame, gold is overall bearish. It makes sense that once it goes back bearish presently or currently, it makes sense to try to get in for a sell right then and there. It's interesting as well that it goes right into the area that I wanted it to go into. Why? Because this is the last area, as I would have highlighted a few days ago, maybe even last week, if I can remember. If you can go back and check that video that I posted on my channel, and maybe even on the Trading Nut YouTube live stream as well. It would go back into this area, in my opinion, because this is the last area. There's liquidity as well to the downside. So I would have liked to see it drop a little further, if I'm being honest with you, but it is what it is. You understand? And it's still possible. But based on what I'm seeing here, there's a principle enacting here. This is the principle of exhaustion. Exhaustion, as I would have mentioned, is multiple rejections to one area. And you can see that actually happening here, where it is hitting this gray area, this gray zone, right? Multiple times, 1, 2, 3, 4 times, and having problems breaking it, which means that it could potentially go back up here temporarily, maybe to this area. Maybe I'm giving another speculation here. It's an educated speculation, an educated assumption, but maybe you can go back up just a little bit to grab some more liquidity before it drops again. But I do believe gold is going to continue down, extremely aggressive. Right now, what it's doing, in my opinion, is gathering enough liquidity to make that voyage down. UJ, right? So UJ is overall bullish, and we know this. UJ is overall bullish, as clear as day, right? This move down that I did not trade this, by the way. This is just a simulation. I did not trade this. Excuse me. For UJ, this here is now showing signs that it is going back bullish. So if it can grab some liquidity from the downside, from the bears, and I am thinking that if it can grab some liquidity from maybe this region, maybe something like this, and then go, that would be good. And furthermore, we know that there's liquidity in, around, and above this area. Why do we know that? Because this has been an area that has been respected in the past. Meaning there are people selling. All here is people selling. And how do you know that? Because the market sell. Simple. So basically what I'm thinking is if you can get this liquidity grab here, and then it goes back into bull momentum again, regardless of the session, in this region, once it starts to move back into bull momentum, that's where I would probably try to buy it. Right? That's what I'm thinking. So that's UJ.
Day 2.
Next, we have UG. So UG is interesting because UJ overall, as I would have mentioned, is bullish, right? UJ overall is bullish. It's very bullish, right? I have a student that did really good, had some really good results in alignment with what I would have been doing on UJ for majority of this year. And UJ presently has gone back into the bull momentum, and you can see that is clear by some nice bear rejections, right? Nice liquidity grabs and bear rejections. And now UJ is back in a bull momentum based move, right? Where you have a nice engulfing candle on a bullish engulfing candle on the daily time frame, telling me that it could potentially try to go back bullish. On the 15-minute time frame, I even highlighted this area, and you can see it in, listen, this is literally what I said in the live stream. Go back and look at what I said. And I said that, I even had an alert here. I said that it could try to theoretically come for liquidity in this area. Why this area? Because this is the last area where we know price, the traders, the majority and the masses would have been executing a lot of their positions. There would be buys, there would be sells. It makes sense, right? People might look at this and say, well, it's a break and retest, but you realize that's not what I said, right? Yes, maybe it is a break and retest, but I'm not approaching it from the perspective of a break and retest. I'm approaching it from the perspective of there is liquidity in this area, and that is why the market is trying to go back to that area. So I literally said that it is probably going to try to get into this area and then run straight back up here, which is where we have the last known liquidity area, because there is liquidity in, around, and above this area. And I quote. Now, the interesting thing is, it did exactly that, but missed where I wanted it to bounce from by a few pips. What I would have done in this case, again, I would have missed it. But what I would have done in this case is, once it grabs this alert, I would have then started to really, get really in tune with what UJ is trying to do, and then probably try to take advantage of that. But this is a beautiful move. This is a 140 pip move. And it is what it is. Not every single analysis is going to present an entry. I missed this one. But I'll tell you this. A missed trade is better than a lost trade. I'm happy to just get it right. This is proof that analysis takes way more precedent than the actual execution. What a lot of people do is they focus on the execution and don't study the analysis. So UJ thus far is looking pretty healthy. I do believe that it can accumulate in this area, maybe drop a little thing and then spike up again, but we'll monitor it to see. I think thus far UJ looks very, very good. GU, let's take a look at that. GU, I think, is in an interesting place right now by virtue of GU is on. I remember this. GU was on a big, in a big kind of consolidation range here, right? And it's on a support. What do traders think that this is? This is an area to buy GU. But if we look at GU overall, GU has been bearish, correct? GU has been bearish since May of this year, and it has been even more bearish since July last year. Not last year, 2014, sorry, right? So that's a big bear market for GU. So I think if GU can continue in a bear direction, would be good. There's liquidity below this area. Why do we know this? Because there are people buying, which means they probably have stop losses below this area. There'll probably be people buying down here as well, which means there's stop losses below, which means there's liquidity. So if it has to sell, it should go for some liquidity and then sell. But if we look at GU now, I would say that it's actually started to go for liquidity already. Off of this area, it goes up. So if I am seeing a sharp move down, maybe something like this, and then a sharp move down, I think this is not an M pattern, by the way. I think this is actually a strong sign. I would not trade it, at least not yet, but it's a strong sign. That's what I'm thinking on GU, and that's what I have.
Day 2.
And last but certainly not least, we have GU. Now, I did other analysis like on oil and CAD, and those things, but none of them really, I didn't really have a drawing on majority of them, right? And the interesting thing is with GU, like I would have said, GU is bearish. GU is very bearish. It's bearish to the point where it's, well, obviously it's bearish here, but it's to the point where it's on a support right now, as the masses would call it. As you know, most of you might know, I don't really trade support. I don't like the term support as a metric to really tell me what the market is going to do. But many traders will think that this is a support, and when it hits this area, that it will automatically buy. And when GU did present itself in this area, I thought that it might spike up this area, because this is the last area where liquidity is, spike this area and then begin to drop. It isn't as pretty as the others, I'll be honest, but it did more or less do what I wanted it to do. And the interesting thing with GU is if it can break this area, GU, in my opinion, is not going to stop, because the amount, and that's why I left GU for last, the amount of liquidity in this area right now is massive. This is since September of 2016. Think about that. There have been people buying GU at this area since 2016. We are in 2022 at the time of this recording. And the interesting thing is, we know, based on the fact that there are people buying off of this area, we know that there are stop losses below this area, insinuating that there's liquidity below this area. It makes sense that if the dealer, which is the person who controls the market, if the dealer can break this area, well, it did so right here, but we know it's a way bigger break than that. If it can break this area to try to go for that liquidity, oh boy, it is not going to stop. This is obviously the last area where the majority of liquidity is, right? But I believe that if it can break this area, GU is not going to stop. All right, guys, so that has been 5 different analysis that I would have done last night on the Trading Nut YouTube channel on the live stream that I did. It was about a few hours ago. I hope that you enjoyed this breakdown of each of those analysis. I hope that you go tap the link in the description to watch that live stream. Watch me do it live. There are a few lessons in there as well that I think that if you watch it would really make a lot of sense to you, because there are things that we oftentimes once over as traders. There are a lot of different nuggets, as a lot of people say. There are a lot of different gems in there, as people call them, that I think would really help you as a trader. Be sure to hit subscribe and like this video. Subscribe to this channel if it is you'd like to see this and you'd like to see more of this type of content. Definitely subscribe to the Trading Nut YouTube channel as well, because you can look forward to seeing my live streams there, right? And obviously when the Trading Nut does release other very good traders. See you guys very soon.